If you do what most people do, you pop a pill to quell the symptom. I always say popping a pill is kind of like your fire alarm going off when your toaster's on fire and you walk over to the fire alarm and you take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire. And instead of ignoring it or thinking it's just aging or blaming aging, if we think more about what caused this to happen, most often the root cause of many things is what I call stuck stress in the body. You can live in a blue zone, do red light therapy, meditate, go and have all your magical pills or whatever you're going to do. But really, it's what you're doing today that's going to ensure a better tomorrow. The number one element of longevity is.
So, Sue, what do most people get wrong when it comes to living a long life? Like when I ask that question, I'm thinking to myself, when you think about the body, why do we not have to age the way that everybody talks about aging as such a bad thing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, first of all, I think all these people that are like the biohackers, they're telling you how you're going to live longer. I always say, how do you know? How do you know? You'd have to go through your entire life not taking all those pills or doing that thing, die, get reincarnated, come back, and then do those things and see if you live longer. And here's the thing, you like actually get into an accident or something terrible happens and then it's over. So I think that longevity has to do with sensory presence today. It has to do with what you're doing right now. You can't, I think a lot of people are living in the past. You can't worry too much about the future. It's what you're doing today that's going to ensure a better tomorrow. So I think the number one element of longevity that I've heard from every older person that I've ever interviewed. My mom lives in an independent living place where the median age is about 90. And some of these people are like 104, 105. I say, what's your secret? And their single top thing is happiness, joy, having family, having relationships, being in connection, community, knowing that they have people there for them in the good times and the bad. That I think is the number one thing that we forget, is that when we're always in what they call samsara, we're always suffering, that we're really not living presently. We're either living in past memories, the remembered past, the hopeful future, but really sensory presence is where longevity begins.
One of the correlations between all the blue zones that they talked about that I paid more attention to than even the diet was the community.
Right.
The attribute of community is something that is so valuable. If you think about it, it's something that as we get more and more lost in these phones, we have the ability to lose our sense of community, thinking that we're connected, but not actually being connected. And so I couldn't agree with you more. I think that when you start to look at longevity, you're looking at, who are you surrounded around? Who's around you? Who are your people? And how are they lifting you up, providing you energy? Who's dragging your butt out of bed on days you don't feel like doing something?
That's
Who are
right.
those people in your life, right?
That's it. Yeah, that's the number one element. You can live in a blue zone, do red light therapy, meditate, go and have all your magical pills or whatever you're going to do, use peptides, whatever. But really, if the fundamental basis is not community oriented, if you don't have people to keep you in check, again, on the good times or the bad, that's the thing that's gonna keep you here. And I know this for myself. My mom, who's 85, I just went through this whole thing last year with her. She had broken her leg, and it was this whole big rigmarole. And watching her in a nursing home for a very short period of time, where it was called rehabilitation. And I was like, well, unless you're rehabilitating her to live in assisted living, like, you're doing a great job with that. But I want to rehabilitate her to get her back into her independent life. And y'all aren't doing it. I was like, Mom, we're out of here. And I just was on it with her, helping her every step of the way. But I have to be honest, I think that is why people in their 80s die, is because they don't have the family support network to keep them here, to know that they're cared for, and to give them that extra effect. And they just get tired. I can't even imagine my mother navigating the medical world the way that I did for her on her own. She'd already be gone by now.
The system is set up for failure.
Yeah,
The system is set up for, rehab is a joke. I mean, rehab is just an assisted living facility where they put you while they figure out where to get your paperwork filed to go to the next crappy place that you're going to end up in where nobody wants to visit. Not only do you not want to be there, but nobody wants to visit you. Like,
exactly.
it's awful. You walk in, the place smells like pee.
That's what I was
It
going to say. It
it's awful.
stinks
It's
and
urine
everybody's angry.
everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, it just smells like death. And
yeah,
then you're like, "Oh, I don't know why the grandkids don't want to come." No, ultimately we should be propping that generation up. We should be helping to take care of them. We should be honoring them the way that a lot of Asian cultures do. Even
great.
in Central and South America, there's more of an honoring of that generation versus this castaway mentality where it's like, oh, their body's dying, so I guess they are too.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. The doctors actually said that to my mom after she broke her leg, and it left her with drop foot. She couldn't move her leg properly. And when I was talking in front of my mother, by the way, the doctor said, you know, she's 85. It's really a 50-50 chance that she'll ever walk again. And as the words are hurling through the air, I'm like, I said to my mom, Mom, don't listen to that guy. He didn't know who he's talking to. Like, you have me on your side. It's like a 90% chance you're going to walk again. You just don't listen to those words. That negative energy, I think, can really get sunk into you. I've heard her doctors say, well, nothing can really help her, this, that, or the other thing. And I'm like, you mean you can't help her? I just want to be clear. It's not nothing. It's just you can't, right? Because if it was nothing, I mean, I can help her. So it just sounds like you're not confident with your your tools. Not, I don't think you're very aware that there's more than what you're saying. So I am 100% with you. I think that there's a big issue in those assisted places is that these people are overworked, underpaid, understaffed. And so it really takes a village to rehabilitate somebody and doing it in a way that is getting them excited to get back into life. And again, it gets exhausting as you get older. You're kind of like, maybe I'm just done with this. It's too hard. It's too hard. When my mom says that, I don't want to be a burden, I'm like, Mom, get it out of your mind. This is our lives to harness. This is our story. Your story isn't, I had a gentle fall, I broke my leg, a doctor wrecked my life, and I died. That's not your story. Your story is a guy botched my leg, and my daughter and I just went at it to get me back, and I thrived and I enjoyed the rest of my life and actually grew closer to my daughter, and we had a great time together going into the pool. And that's the story, right?
yeah,
And almost instantly it changed her and it got her back into activity, and she's made great friends at this independent community that she lives in, and it's beautiful to see her thriving even at 85.
I think the generation before us, had a tendency to just follow the direction of whatever the doctor said. It was the generation that had polio, and they watched it get
Mhm.
eradicated. All these things were fixed from the medical world. But what comes with great success often comes a little bit of laziness, and that is the curiosity of the profession kind of stopped in general. This is not everybody. There's a lot of wonderful doctors out there, but the curiosity of the profession kind of died a little bit. And it just said, oh, if I say this, then you should do this. And doctors are very quick to tell you that you're never going to do something again.
Yeah.
And that is an awful way to help someone heal when we know so much of it's mental. We know so much of it's active. So I had a client one time. She was in her 90s, and she got out of bed, and most people that get out of bed fast and they don't get their feet, they fall, they break their hip, and it's over, right? It's like it's a downward spiral from that point. She called me to tell me that she fell, but then she said, the good news is, I walk 3 miles a day, Scott, and they told me that I had so much muscle around my hip that any other person my age would have broken their hip. But because I had so much muscle, I just had a deep bruise and I'm okay. And she was back to walking in weeks.
Wow.
The difference between just staying active and moving and mentally sharp is such a significant difference as we age. And so hopefully this challenge to doctors will be now that, they're supposed to be getting a little more nutrition training because they haven't had any of that. That's important. What does the diet play? Maybe mental will be next. Maybe it will be how we talk and what we say.
I hope so, because I think that the mental health crisis that we have is very glaring. I think after COVID happened, I lived in New York before I moved to Florida, and it was a real wake up call how you saw the mental health issues really all over the place because a lot of the shelters were closed. And then these people were just walking the streets, and it's like, we can do better. We can absolutely do better. And the crazy thing is, like when I think of psychiatry, it's crazy that psychiatry, they don't study the brain, which is right. They don't study the brain. They study emotions, they, things like this, but they actually don't study the brain itself. So I think oftentimes we're giving people in anything, mental health, physical problems, whatever, we give people a medication to treat a symptom. But the problem, I think, with the medical field today is that that's what they are. They're very symptom driven and they study pharmaceuticals. So if you want to take a pharmaceutical, go see a doctor. If you want to get a surgery, go see a surgeon. But if you want longevity, you want well being, you want healthcare, they really have minimal education and training on it. We think that they know a lot, but again, they really don't. I mean, I had even said to her doctor, hey, I'm going to use peptides in my mom's leg. I'm going to do TB 500 and BPC 157. And she goes, oh no, that causes cancer. And I was like, where's your research? What research paper did you read? What are you even talking about? So the next time I was there, I brought her some literature. I go, look, there's not a lot of studies on humans, but there's nothing also that says that it's causing cancer. Can like human growth hormones and things like that? Can things adapt? Can we create angiogenesis? Yes, but is the upside potential of reducing inflammation enough where we actually help cell turnover and get my mom well? And she just kind of like blankly stared at me and said no more. So yeah, if you want to live well, you have to do your research. Don't believe all of the Wild West that's also out on Instagram. If you're getting your information from Instagram, I'm sorry, that's not really the place. It's like the Wild West out there. There's so many scams and things that look really scientific, but really there's not a lot behind them. And you have to use your own judgment. I'm somebody who, I feel like I'm a human experiment. I'm always trying something. And when something's working, do it. Even if people say that's crazy, that's so silly, I can't believe you do it. If it works for you, do that and do more of it even, right? So I think we also, with the medical field, we sort of lost our trust in our own intuition and our own sensations. And again, cause to symptom. If we think more about what caused this to happen, most often the root cause of many things is what I call stuck stress in the body. It's actually not an acute trauma like bending over to pick up a pencil and have back pain, not an acute trauma. But even dis-ease or disease can be a cumulative effect of all sorts of things: emotional, psychological, neurological, chemical instability. So I think pain is a great motivator, and it's also a way for us to investigate our bodies and become more of a curious human rather than a symptom focused, I'm going to look on PubMed and figure out what this is kind of a thing.
It's also personal responsibility.
Yeah,
The thing that
agency.
I had to learn really quick is, I'm one of those people that mentally I don't feel like anything's ever going to be wrong. I'm just going to tell myself it's fine and there's nothing wrong. And then all of a sudden the body starts to blow up from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking back on my history of health, I've always been healthy, but I also wasn't always taking the precautions or doing the things that I do at 47 that I was doing at 27 were significantly different. What I was putting in my body, how I was reacting, how I was exercising. I mean, all of it. Was I stretching ahead of time? Was I prioritizing movement? What about simple things like vitamin D?
Mm-hmm.
Just getting out in the sun. The simplicity of getting morning sunshine or walking outside. Life is not that difficult, but once you assume that responsibility, that personal responsibility, you're also not looking to someone else to tell you everything you're supposed to do. And that's another challenge, is that when I look at that doctor, Sue, what I'm really doing is I'm saying, oh, well, he gave me permission to sit on my fat ass at home and do nothing. That's what he just did. He just told me to sit on my ass, eat some ice cream, watch some TV, because I'm not worth it anymore. That's a choice. And I don't want that choice.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
want
want that
that
choice.
either.
I'm
And
calling myself a fat ass for all of you listening. That is not about you. That is about me. But I'm just saying, I don't want to do that.
yeah, and I think you're saying something really important here, Scott, is that we're getting very far away from nature. That there are so many free resources to boost your longevity and your well-being today. Like, when was the last time, and I ask this to my clients when they're in a lot of pain, when was the last time that you took your shoes off and walked on the grass? Or when was the last time you took your shoes off and walked on the beach? Or when was the last time that you just sat still in the morning and watched the sunrise and let that early morning sunlight come into your eyes? And some of my clients will say, I don't know, maybe when I went on vacation last year, I think we walked on the beach a couple of days. You know what I mean? It's just like, where that's the thing, is if you just, the bioelectrochemical field of your body will get charged just simply by standing on grass, just by taking focused breaths and being in nature, hugging a tree. I know that sounds crazy, but I hug my tree every morning. So, touching a living plant, again, just having that natural relationship, because our body has a frequency and it is mirroring nature inside our bodies. It's like a mycelium. We have this fascial system that is very similar to mycelium. It's connecting everything in our bodies, and it's like a battery. It needs to be charged, and the way that you charge it is by being in nature, being in sunlight, hugging somebody, being in relationship, walking and communing with the world, rather than, like you said, sitting on your couch and watching TV, eating ice cream.
Which sometimes is fine, but
Sure.
it better be healthy, high quality ice cream with just the raw ingredients,
Exactly.
nothing
Exactly.
else.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, talk to me about fascia. It seems like it's something that, I know you talk about all the time.
Mhm.
The fascia, though, is something that's very misunderstood. Hardly anybody knows what it actually is, and it's very limitedly even talked in sports as much as I think it should be. And so I'm interested in just the importance of the fascia and what people can do to really dig into that in their own body.
Yeah, it's not only very misunderstood or unknown in the sports world, but in the medical world. Because in dissection for hundreds of years, we've been just chucking it in the bucket to get to the good stuff. So we've spent a lot of time in science looking inside the cells, looking at the muscle, the nerve, the bones, the blood vessels. But we didn't spend any time looking at the extracellular matrix, which is fascia on a microscopic scale. So fascia for years has been called a connective tissue. And it's because when you look inside a cadaver, it connects everything, so connective tissue. But people like Jaap van der Wal, Robert Schleip, these researchers who have really gone to the point of understanding fascia as a biological fabric, that it actually co-evolved with your nervous system from the point of conception on out, and it is a sensory organ. It's actually it's the organ of awareness. So when you feel things, you're actually feeling it through the fascial net. Fascia is a three-dimensional fluid-based architectural matrix under your skin. It literally acts like flexible scaffolding. So it is the substance in your body that is not just helping you with your structural alignment and your structural stability, stabilizing your muscles and your bones, but every cell, blood vessel, nerve, and organ relies on the fluid flow of this extracellular matrix to function efficiently. And the three primary substances in fascia are something called H3O2, which is bound water. And it's kind of like a gel-like, sort of a snotty looking fluid that gets converted after, you drink water and eat nutritious foods. But it converts into this H3O2 substance. But also it is collagen. It's the collagen matrix. And collagen, we know, is very important for our skin, for our muscle, for our bones. But again, every cell relies on the actual design of this three-dimensional fluid-based system to function efficiently. So it's literally a three-dimensional matrix from skin to bone, head to toe. And what recent science has uh, discovered because of atomic force microscopy, because of curious researchers, is that daily living causes fluid degradation in the cellular matrix. And even if you don't have pain, which is one of the primary things it can cause, but even if you don't have pain, anybody listening has felt what I call stuck stress in fascia. Like when you sit for long periods of time, and then when you get up, you kind of feel like you aged 40 years because your joints don't quite work as well when you get up as they did when you sat down. Or you wake up in the morning feeling as stiff as a dried out sponge left out overnight on your kitchen sink. That's your fascia talking to you. This system is needing to move, which is why motion is lotion. We need to move every day. If we're too still, it's one of the primary things that causes that stagnation in the tissue. But also repetitive postures and movements do. So if you're playing a sport or things like that, you create these lines of strain because fascia is a force transmission system too. So if the tissue is kind of always in a particular state, after a while, it creates kind of like a run in a stocking. It starts really small, but all of a sudden it's like clear up the leg of the stocking. And so, again, the researchers are really looking at this system and understanding that if you don't ever do anything to really hydrate fascia, you do start getting more noticeable symptoms like one or more joints. Just suddenly you're like, wow, my knee's really starting to hurt me, because fascia is extra durable around our joints. And so your joints kind of act like, uh, I don't even know what you want to call it, like a GPS system. They're like satellites. And if the fascia is losing its fluid state around a joint, your brain starts getting messages something's wrong, and now you get these pain signals. And here's the big kick: if you do what most people do, you pop a pill to quell the symptom. I always say popping a pill is kind of like your fire alarm going off when your toaster's on fire and
Right.
you walk over to the fire alarm and you take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire, and eventually your house is going to burn down. So I think understanding fascia and that it's sending us these pre-pain signals all the time, which should be our alert to do something for it. And instead of ignoring it or thinking it's just aging or blaming aging for those feelings that you have, if you don't ever do anything or you're constantly popping pills, you end up getting symptoms that seem completely unrelated to fascia, like bloating, weight gain, wrinkles, cellulite, exhaustion midday, right? In the middle of the day, all of a sudden you want to take a nap or pop caffeine, but then at night you try to fall asleep and you can't wind down. You're not falling asleep. You're not staying asleep. You're getting up in the middle of the night to pee. That's your nervous system now alerting you that it's having a hard time with sensory regulation. And I think that what the researchers are showing with fascia is that it not only plays a significant role in pain, but also in longevity, in cellular stability, and neurological, chemical, psychological stability. So fascia is the stability system of the body that we should actively participate in tapping into, because diet and exercise don't really address the fluid perfusion of fascia.
So if I'm listening to this and I just learned all this about fascia, right? What are the things that the average person can do to start to take action? The we said motion, is lotion. We know that movement is good and sunlight and all the basics, walking barefoot. But what are some of the things that you recommend to help them, maybe starting with rejuvenation of fascia, and then to develop the fascia for anything that they want to accomplish in their lives? Maybe it's sport, maybe it's just staying healthy as they age.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, not just fascia, but I would say three really important things that, again, are free. People can do. Start adopting these habits. Number one is sipping water more frequently and eating more water filled foods. That's just number one, right? So that it's like logical. But so, I got this glass of water in front of me. Instead of me, popping all my pills in the morning and drinking this whole glass of water in 4 seconds and then not drinking for 3 hours, you would be better served sipping this glass of water and making it last an hour, and then filling it back up and doing it again, rather than guzzling it and not drinking for long periods of time. It's number one. It's one of the primary things that can help fluids and fascia stay more hydrated, and it's just cellular hydration. Second thing is sleep hygiene. You want to sleep in a dark, cool, climate controlled room. If you don't have, if you're waking up to sunlight, which is fine as long as you're going to sleep when the sun goes down and then waking up. But if you're going to sleep looking at your phone until you finally turn it off, that blue light is actually a killer of your sleep cycle, of your circadian rhythm. So at least 2 hours before you go to bed, shut the blue lights off, dim your lights in the house. If you're going to watch TV, make sure that you're a good distance away from that television. But I always think that an hour before bed, just lying down and just doing breath work, just breath work entrainment, slow, focused inhalation, exhalation, then sleep with an eye mask so that you actually wake up when your body's ready to wake up, not necessarily when the sun is there to wake you up. A third thing, and we kind of talked about this before we got on, is bouncing. Anything that you like, whether you're on a trampoline where you just, even if you're not going to, your feet even don't leave the ground, just a little bit of bouncing, because fascia relates to the lymphatic system. So bouncing can actually help the fluid perfusion from fascia to lymph. Lymph is what is part of your immune system, jump dumps fluids and waste and metabolites out of your body. And then, I have a methodology called MELT, and we focus specifically on fascia and the nervous system and the lymphatic system, and trying to give people tension and compression techniques, because fascia is a tension compression management system. And tension and compression can dehydrate tissue. Like when you sit for long periods of time, you're putting compression on the back of your legs, tension to the back body. That's why when you get up, you're like, wow, my back kind of feels stiff and my knees aren't working just yet until I get to my kitchen from my bedroom or whatever it is. But it's also a piece of understanding how to apply gentle tension and compression in local regions, and then creating flow into the tissue, driving fluid perfusion. There's a word that we use, it's called piezoelectricity. Biomechanical pressure can actually, if you put pressure or tension on the tissue, it's called mechanotransduction. It can take pressure and turn it into cellular exchange. So anything that gives you, it could just be your own hands touching and squeezing your body, making sure that you're touching your body every day. I think we should touch ourselves more. And I think that those are like really important elements of keeping your fascia hydrated.
Well, I think that's a great explanation, and there's three things that you can do right there to have a deliberate response to hydrating fascia, to building and developing, resurging it. The funny thing is that I think checking in with our bodies is another thing that comes down to personal responsibility. The older I get, the more in shape I feel. It's almost funny in that, I've had this body, this healthy mind, all of these opportunities, and I had to hit 40 to start taking care of it in a way that I mean, I did a lot of these things younger, but
Mm-hmm.
not to the level, like even working out. I spend a good 5 to 10 minutes now prior to my workout just loosening up, just making sure that I'm not just going in to hit the weights and to go right in, because I found myself injuring, just stupid little tiny injuries
Yeah.
that don't need to happen. And if I just take my time, what you're talking about going to bed, how many of us wake up in a rush and go to sleep in a rush, and then we wonder why we're not sleeping restfully? It's the same thing about actually anything we're doing in the day. And it's something as simple as long stretches. Like I like to think about the dog when the dog wakes up. The
Right.
first thing the dog does is he kind of gets that big stretch, and he's
Pandiculation. Yeah.
yeah, and then he goes and gets some hydration, and
That's it.
he drinks some water, and then he goes to the bathroom, and then he
We
comes
should
back
all
in. He's
we
ready
should
to
all
play.
listen to our animals. They know everything.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the simplicity, but we get so used to everything else getting in the way that it
Mhm.
becomes very difficult.
Yeah,
And
it's a hard piece of it. But you're saying something really important is awareness, and again, agency. And I feel like that's really what melt is it this invitation for people to come back home. We call it the 4 R's protocol, and the first R of melt is reconnect. Like, before you do something, you should assess yourself and understand where you are today, physically, mentally, and emotionally. How do I feel in my body? So when you can become a conscious agent in a physical form, like before I go to lift weights, I sometimes just lie on the ground and I do what we call a rest assess. And the rest assess is just that, an assessment of how well you can actually rest. And I tell you what, I would say when I do classes, I think 20% of the people actually can't lie still for 2 minutes. They fidget, they adjust, they're looking at their watches. They literally cannot rest. And then when I say to them, I want you to use body sense without movement. I just want you to notice for unnecessary tension in your body. And with your mind, relax your shoulder girdle and relax your thighs. And you actually see bodies kind of go, and finally meet the floor. Like, they're practically levitating on the ground. And so I say to them, that's an indication like you have unnecessary tension living in your body that you wouldn't have known about had I not just pointed it out to you. But now, if you know that you have it, now you know you can get rid of it. Like that sometimes I have tension in my system. And if I just say to my body, relax, suddenly you drop down another level. This is part of wellness that most of us never do, is that we actually don't attune our mind back into our bodies. We have to give ourselves permission to go into our bodies. And especially for people who have pain, that's why pain relievers become a thing, is because they actually want to tune it out. You actually leave your body. You're sort of zoned out of it by taking oxy or whatever. And for me, that was a big, kind of a wake up call at 45, 10 years ago, when I had gotten married. And then 4 years later, my husband died of an accidental overdose because he was using oxy and it was laced with fentanyl, and he died. And it's like, you suddenly realize that it's right in front of you, that people that you love are doing things. And these drugs are not your friend. They're not your friend. They can kill you. And the ownership comes back to agency. It comes back to um, self love, self acceptance, self trust, self knowing, self belief, all of self, you fill in the blank. We need to exercise our right to identify ourselves within a physical form. And when you do that, I think you have a lot more control over your life, because you're in here, you're checking in all the time. How am I feeling today? Or you're with somebody and all of a sudden you're kind of like, your face starts to get like this and you're like, wow, I'm really having a feeling about this like freaking person's energy. Let me just see if I can take that back a little bit and take a breath and not assault them with my words because they're really pissing me off, right? Like, you just sort of can take control and not let any circumstance or any situation get the better of you, and not let your emotions control you, that you're bigger than your emotions. You're even bigger than your thoughts and your beliefs. So we can amplify the choices in our lives and have more control just by agency.
I think we are the energy that we put out into the world.
Yeah.
And so if we can choose to put the right energy out into the world, we'll receive the right energy back. And it's crazy how that can change. I mean, you can have bad moments in days, but you can flip them around. And the other thing that I think is really important about what you were talking about is the more in tune you get with your body, the more you start to realize that there's a lot of transitional moments in a day. And just like the workout, I've learned that, I sped through my days so many times with no breaks. And the thing I always say, and podcast listeners know I've said this 1,000 times, but I'm a sprinter, and sprinters need to sprint and rest, sprint and rest. So one of the things that I do, if I find myself walking up a set of stairs or riding in an elevator or getting in and out of the car, I just take a moment,
Mm.
be present, take a deep breath, set the mode that I'm present. I will say a prayer a lot of times in that
Sure.
moment, and then I move on to the next thing. That
Mhm.
alone helps me reset. And it's something I started doing when I would come home from work because my kids were young, and I was like at like level 100, and I would come in like trying to build a business and build life and feeling all this stress, most of it personal and my own problem. But I'd pull in the garage or the driveway and I would just take a moment to separate and before I walked in, and that alone would allow me to be a little bit better at the chaos that I was getting ready to walk into
That's
with the young
beautiful.
kids or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
I think these are all things that I've learned to cope with. I'm just curious, when you had that traumatic experience, how did you stay in tune with your body? That's obviously something that was happening right in front of you, something that you probably took on responsibility for that wasn't your
Mhm.
responsibility. How did you both do what we're talking about, where you stayed in that present moment while also kind of battling through that trauma?
Yeah. Some of it was just, I knew the truth. I knew that, the truth was my husband loved me and I loved him and he was doing something over there. And I knew that he was. And I just, it wasn't, I think it made me realize, like, I'm not here on the planet to like heal other people. It's not my job to do that. It's my choice to care for somebody to do that. So in that moment, I think what saved me was that I have a very good meditation practice. I believe that the universe loves me and that all of these moments are supposed to happen, that somewhere along the line it would help me. And one of the things that really helped me through the darkest moments was I journal a lot. I'm a writer. I love just sitting and writing, and it kind of gets the trauma out of my head and onto a piece of paper. And it had, this all happened right after COVID, or I'm sorry, just before COVID. So
Oh,
Chris died in September, COVID happened in March, and I'm in New York City. And like when you're banging a pot at 7 o'clock at night, like we're still here. And so, I was not only feeling so disassociated from reality, it's just like your whole world kind of just gets in slow motion, like what is happening. And then this happened. And that was when I started my podcast because I thought I need to talk to people.
yeah.
And I took this crazy moment where on my Facebook page, I started putting down the thought of the day. And as I was going through these stages of grief, there would be a word, a thought that would come into my mind. And then I would write a piece on it and I would share it out there in the world. And what was something that really got me through that were people sending me private messages, commenting on it, saying, I've never heard somebody talk about loss in such a loving way. Or I wish somebody had said that to me when I was in my hardest moments of grief, that grief is just love with no place to go, and like, so it made me realize that I wasn't alone, that I had actually helped other people in the worst of my time. And it actually helped me also create relationships with other people who I think of as mentors and peers, as they watched me go through this, that they would then mirror back, like, that's, you helped me. I hadn't actually said it to you, but that passage that you wrote really affected me, and I have shared it with a lot of people. And I thought maybe there is again, a reason why these things happen. You can say it like they say, the things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
For
That's
you,
like a
right.
pretty common Buddhist saying, and I believe that. So I think that that's probably the biggest thing, is that I didn't isolate myself and I didn't fall apart or let his family and the insanity that they brought to my life consume me, instead of just being, because I was very angry at them because of what they did. But I learned to find compassion for them, for how they were acting, that they just don't know any better. And that's actually why my husband got addicted, was he had to live in that family for his whole young life. And of course this would happen. I mean, he came from that family, so what else would happen,
Yeah, and everybody grieves in a different way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like sometimes we get trapped in the 8th grade version of ourselves. And, sometimes that version is one that you see people never get out of.
Yeah.
My wife and I were watching some murder thing that happened in Boston where like I'm trying to remember the lady's name, but it was a really popular Netflix show. And they were texting and like they were all cheating on each other and their texts were coming in. And I looked at Adrian, my wife, and I said, they're texting like they're seventh and eighth graders. This is the dumbest stuff I've ever heard in my life. But it genuinely, they had never removed themselves from that world. Everything was like trapped in this 13-year-old brain
Mm-hmm.
that never elevated to another level. And
Yes.
and the drinking and the partying and the do you like me, do you like me not, do you like, it's so dumb, but we all fall back into that stuff sometimes
All the time.
when we respond in a way that is an old version, an old wound, an old
Mm-hmm.
experience. And we have to be really careful. That's another good reason to check in with ourselves and to stay in tune with ourselves and to have those moments of presence. But I really, that eighth grade mindset is like, I just genuinely believe that sometimes when families live in chaos, Sue, I think that sometimes it's this this line that people just haven't gotten across, and somebody's got to break through, and
Yeah, or you marry
or
someone
you
who
leave.
you marry somebody who keeps you in the familial state. That's the root, the Latin root of family is familial, which is familiar, right? So you're 100% right. Like, I don't think most of us realize that oftentimes our reaction in the present moment is actually because of a past experience. And I remember once being, I was going to go into, when I was working in fitness, into my boss's office. I had been teaching great classes and I wanted a raise. And I walked into his office with my fist clenched and I, said, Kurt, you do great work. I'm doing all these things. I always show up. I'm here 100% of the time. I never miss anything. And I need a raise. And he goes, why are you coming in here with your fist clench? And I was like, why am I coming in here with my fist clench? And I realized, oh, you know why? Is because when I was a kid, and I wanted to do something and I had to walk downstairs into the basement into my dad's office to ask permission, the answer was no. 100% of the time it was always no. And then I'd be like, well, but but I did all my homework, I did all this, I did all that. And my dad would be like, no means no. And I was like, but why no? And he goes, because I said so. And I was like, but there's no reason for a no. And he goes, oh, well, now you're grounded for a week. So why don't you think about why no is the right answer and you're not getting what you want? And so
It's so
in
hard for entrepreneurs. It's so hard for the entrepreneur brain. For those of you listening, what you're describing is what it's like to be a kid with a brain that's going 1,000 miles an hour and
Yeah,
is just trying to constantly think past the next move. And
exactly.
that curiosity is not disrespect. That curiosity is an awareness, and it has to have a place to go. And if it's just shut down by because I said so. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times in this world for because I said so, like when it comes to fear and running out in traffic, or there's lots of things that kids need to have that are because we said, and then you can figure it out to get curious. Here's what would happen if you did it. But I can understand that the generation we grew up in, though,
Yeah.
it was a much different time, and people responded in a way that was, children. I know we all heard it. Children are meant to be seen and not
Seen, not
heard.
heard. Yeah, that was a big one. And again, I'm 55. So like I grew up in the 70s and we were kind of like poor and didn't like have anything. So it was,
But your
you
dad
know,
had an office in the basement. That's kind of cool. That's that
we,
sounds
we were we were
awesome.
the first kids on the block that actually had a computer. My dad had a teletype in the basement. I don't know if anybody knows what a teletype is, but yeah, and it was just like I think we were the first people like that had fax machines and stuff. But yeah, I just think the world today though is moving so fast, and with AI, you really don't know what you're looking at. 90% of what you're seeing aren't even real people. Like I'm ready to make an avatar of myself to save myself time, saying the same things in these short little clips. But the reality is that if you get too into the ecosystem of technology and online living, you really miss a piece of how you said it's kind of like the energy that we connect when we're face to face in real life in 3D is of the utmost importance. And so I think that I have a lot of worry for the kids who are teenagers, 20-year-olds, early 30s today compared to where we were, where it was like once I was 18, I couldn't wait to get out of the house and figure out my life and just do it. Whereas now I think kids can be very frozen over like people saying there's not going to be a job. 80% of people who get their undergraduate degree don't have a job. And it's like, why am I going to school? Maybe I should try to get a job now, you know? So I think that people need to remember the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. When we act in a state of fear, that's when we get off of flow. But when we're acting in a state of love, I believe I can do this. I'm with right people. I'm with people with positive energy who believe in me. You go. But when you're with people who are like, I mean, that's my mom. I don't know, Sue. I don't think that's a good idea. You know, I'd be like, if I listen to my mom, I would like still be living up in Albany, New York, and probably working at a 7-Eleven or something. You know what I mean? Like,
I
so
think
it's
I think
important.
I
Yeah.
think you're right. Listen, I think you're right when it comes to our moms. It's funny though. I talk to my sons who are I guess my oldest son will be 20, so he's not going to be a teenager much longer, but they'll be 20 and 17. And I do catch myself giving them advice that I wouldn't follow myself occasionally, and I will catch myself because we want to protect them. So mom saying, I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, I remember my mom telling me I should never get rid of my government job because it was the best. I would have a pension. And she was right. It was a really good gig. And to her, she was giving good advice. To
Right.
me and my brain, it was like a prison. It was awful. And so when I think about those things, I think about the human and where it's coming from,
Mhm.
and if it's coming from a place of love and I can decipher it, it makes it a lot easier for me to get through it and to respect it. So I should bring all those things in. I think people it's a perfect example. I think people get a book and they read a book and they try to follow that book. And that book has good ideas in it, but you're not supposed to change your whole life to that one book. What you should do, much like these relationships, is you should take in the data. You should process the data. You should think about it. Maybe you sit on a word or a phrase, or you write it down and you build. And maybe you take one thing from that book
Mhm.
and then you build upon it, because that's what we should be doing. Not being like, oh, I'm going to get on this diet because I read it in this book, and then I'm going to be perfect, and then I'm not perfect. Now I'm frustrated. This is a bad way to live. And so mom giving us advice, or family members tearing ourselves apart, or whatever the things are, they're all just a feedback loop that we have the choice of what we put in and what we take out, and then what kind of energy we bring to the world. that's
That's right.
that's really what you're saying, and how we can change. And now you have some routines. I want to wrap up with how do people follow you? What are some of the things that I have your book here, The Melt Method. When it came in the mail, I asked my assistant, I was like, what am I getting this women's breakthrough and self-treatment book for? And she goes, Sue's going to be on your podcast. I was like, oh, well, okay. Well, then I've got
I
the
got to
book.
take a look.
And then you sent me cool gear. I've
Yeah.
got the fascia
Fascia
um,
hydrator.
hydrator, and I mean, I'm so grateful for all the things you've sent. But most importantly, tell everybody how they get you've gone on a mission. You're
Mhm.
helping people. How do they find you? And then what's any takeaway that you want to give everyone listening today?
Yeah, so you can find me on our website, meltmethod.com, MELT method. And we have a whole group of products that basically are self care tools to help people um, not just learn about their body, but really incorporate self care as a daily self care practice. Yeah, the method, like the tools are just tools. The method is really where the meat of it is. There's a lot of education behind it. I'm on social with my name, Sue Hitzmann, but also Melt Method. We're on Instagram. I'm constantly posting over there because somebody will ask me some question invariably, and I'll be like, guys, listen, this is how this works. Like, let me make this simple. So I have really dedicated the last 30 years of my life to helping people decode the messages that their bodies are giving to them, and actually take actionable steps and not wait for pain. Like, pain is not the prerequisite for melt. People come to melt because they're in pain most often. But I always say if people could just engage in the understanding of what their fascia is, how you can care for it as a system in the body that stabilizes you, and do that daily, you can really avoid so many of the things that we blame aging on. So the simple message to everybody is, in as little as 10 minutes a day, at least 3 times a week, you can actually keep your fascia in a good state. But the beauty of melt is that through the assessment, the protocol, the melting, and then the reassessment, you can actually feel your body change in that 10 minutes. And what you're changing isn't just the fascial system, it is your nervous system and your sensory motor control. So you had said, Scott, like you go to the gym and you spend about 10, 15 minutes warming up. Well, I would tell you, I would get that fascia hydrator. I would do that 60-second lymphatic drainage. I might tell you to get those balls, the hand and foot therapy balls. We use these soft balls. Get these things under your feet so that your nervous system receives information. You release some flow to your neck and low back so that you're actually boosting the actual systems that create dynamic motion. And that's your nervous system and your fascial system, or what we call the neurofascial system. So this kind of self-care can be incorporated into any practice, whether you're an athlete or you're an older adult, whether you're in pain or not. The treatments are about 10 minutes, and we have a streaming platform called Melt on Demand. And there's like hundreds of videos in the categories of pain, performance, and lifestyle that people can engage in. And the sessions go anywhere from 10 minutes to 90 minutes, depending upon what we're doing. I teach live classes every week, and we have a community of over 3,000 instructors. So if anybody is listening, if you go to Melt Method, type in your zip code into the Find an Instructor, and you might be shocked that there's actually a Melt instructor right in your backyard who can teach you how to do the method, or you can at least experience it and try it on for size and see if it works. We also have a great presence on YouTube with a bunch of free videos there as well.
So much to learn. Obviously, where you are right now is where you're supposed to be. So the
Yes.
starting point is all you need. Sue, thank you so much for sharing the
Thank you.
methodology, the melt method, and all of your wisdom today. And I look forward to everybody enjoying this episode.
Thank you.
So YouTube has this cool feature where they pick the next video for you, and it's right here on this screen. So I hope you enjoy this next video.